Have you ever said to yourself, I want to watch the birds, but instead of a skilled director doing it, I want to watch some guy who shakes the camera a lot and does shots that don't make any sense? Instead of skilled actors doing it, I want to watch people who are monotone and have no chemistry with each other. And I want to add a love story that takes up over half the movie. And I want the birds, instead of being real birds, or even trained birds, or even fake birds that look real. I want CGI birds in there that look like they came straight out of Final Fantasy VII. No, you've never said that to yourself? Either have I. But that's what we get with Birdemic. Now, there are some funny moments in the film, mainly with the birds that look like they're straight out of Final Fantasy VII. And there are some boring moments in the film because the love story is very boring because the main heroes are not very interesting. It starts out with the driving scene, which you know is a bad sign because you watch Mono's The Hands of Fate. And then this guy goes into a restaurant and is checking out this chick. And then he follows the chick out and is like, did I go to school with you? Which is the lamest pickup line ever. But it turns out they went to school together. And so they exchange business cards. And he makes $1 million sale. And she's a model. And she lands a deal with Victoria's Secret. And so they go out to dinner together. And that begins the lamest love story in movie history, where boring guy 1 and boring woman 1 meet up for a 47-minute love story that involves no birds and involves the lamest 2 people you've ever met falling in love, being monotone with no chemistry. Now, there's some remarks in here about green energy, and you're thinking, okay, this movie wants you to go green. No, trust me, it gets a lot more preachy than that before the end. And you want to strangle these 2 in this love story because they are boring as hell, and they are boring as hell. There's no boobs even. They might have made up for it if there were boobs in this movie, but there are no boobs in this movie. There's no shower scene. There's nothing. It's just a 47-minute love story that's just boring. James Nagian, I don't know what he thought he was making with this film, but this is number 6 on the IMDb worst movie list. I can see why now. I started with 6 because I'm like, well, I can't start with 4 because that's Sharknado. And Sharknado, as we all know, is like the modern day Citizen Kane. Which I was joking when I made that remark. But compared to this movie, it is the modern day Citizen Kane. This movie's awful. But finally, at 47 minutes in, the birds show up for no real reason and start attacking people. We don't really get an explanation why they just show up for no reason. And they're diving into things and exploding like they're carrying dynamite. So then our heroes, who just made love the night before, because they're getting on with this relationship, are trapped in a hotel room and the birds are trying to break in. So they put the beds up to the window. Why they didn't go back to his place, I don't know. Why they didn't go back to her place, I don't know. They both have real houses, but they went to a hotel room instead, like she's some sort of present-day hooker. Like she's some sort of $5 hooker, they went to a hotel room, which she'd make a lot as a hooker, but since she's a model, maybe she's some hooker model. But they put the beds up against the window, and then the birds just go away. So they see if there are survivors, and there are in this other hotel room, whose names I can't bear to remember, which I don't know if I blocked out their names, because this movie was just boring me, or if I just didn't care at that point. But they get into this guy's van, and they take clothes hangers out to defend themselves. And they're back to back, one person trying to unlock the van, and they're swinging the clothes hangers like this, and the birds are surrounding them in the air. And it looks like something out of a JRPG. Like, oh, it's our turn to clothes hanger. Oh, it's the bird's turn to attack. It literally looks like something out of Final Fantasy. And then they get in the van, and now somehow they've got guns. This is California, people. Everybody doesn't have guns in California. Now, if this was Ohio or Tennessee or Texas, especially Texas, I mean, everybody's got guns everywhere in Texas. There's a bed gun, there's a chair gun, there's a TV gun, there's a door gun, there's a wine gun. I mean, everybody's got guns everywhere in Texas. But California, nobody's got guns in California. But somehow that one guy's got a machine gun, and they've got like 8 other guns in this van. So you got to wonder what this guy's doing in California. And they're shooting these birds down, which is hilarious. Yeah, they shoot them and they just spin out like this down to the ground. Which I think a bird would just do a nosedive, but who knows? I've never seen a CGI bird die before. And they're pretty much just going around helping people who are brought down by the side of the road. Like to help these one dudes, and they find these 2 kids. The one's underneath the van, and our main character, whose name I think I blocked from my memory, helps this girl underneath the van. And then they find this other kid in the trunk, this boy kid. And I like to think that his parents didn't hide him in the trunk from the birds. I like to think his parents were going to go dump his body in a river. But the kids are the best actors in the movie because they actually act like little kids. And so they keep going. And eventually we meet a doctor who gives a big speech on global warming. So the thing gets really preachy here. And then they go, and eventually one person dies, and then another person dies. And then they go to get gas, and it's $100 a gallon. And then they try to get robbed by a guy with good gas, and the birds kill him. Then they meet a guy who lives in trees, and he gets preachy about global warming and what it's doing. So this movie is very preachy about global warming, by the way. Very, very preachy about global warming. So it's a love story, it's preachy about global warming, and it's birds, CGI birds acting, killing people, kind of, and exploding on impact. And then at the end, they get attacked by birds in their van, which has no gas. They're out of bullets, and the birds just fly over the ocean away. Never explained why they go away. It's never explained why they show up, except for global warming. So apparently the birds just decide, we're done killing people for now. But don't worry, there are 2 sequels. The birds come back and back again. Yeah, this movie is terrible. It has successfully beat Things as one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So now it's Monos, Birdemic, then Things. I mean, the sound is awful. Acting is awful. The CGI birds are awful. Somehow they got guns. Nothing's explained except for global warming explains it. So this is number 6 on the IMDb list, and it somehow was better than Sharknado, which it is not better than Sharknado. Next week we're doing number 5, House of the Dead. I can't imagine it gets any worse.